I have a conspiracy theory. My conspiracy theory is there is no conspiracy. If there is no conspiracy, it's because of me. It's because of you. There's nobody to blame. So I take it to an extreme measure. I say the suffering in Burma is because of me. The atrocities in Zimbabwe, I am responsible. The Middle Eastern conflict, it's for me to solve. You see, I don't think I am separated from the world. The world is not as it is. The world is as I am, as you are. We are not separated from the world. We make the world. So I am responsible for anything that happens in the world because I can really do something about it. Simply by being me. What I am is what I give to the world. That is what the world is made of. You know, there's one more thing about it. If you blame somebody, you give them the power. If you take responsibility, you are empowered. You can do something about it. If you take responsibility, you cannot be a victim, no matter the circumstances, no matter how much adversity comes to you. If you are responsible, you can do something about it. You don't have to be a victim of anything. Victim is a choice. A poet once said a line that I can, that notion really I can identify with. The line was, "Only my story I know how to tell. Narrow is my world as the world of an ant." I can relate to that, but I say, only my story I know how to tell. Wide is my world as the entire universe. So let me tell you a little bit about my story. When I was 21, almost 30 years ago, I was lost in the Bolivian Amazon. In the midst of the rainy season, I lost everything that I had. I lost my 3 companions. I lost my raft with all the equipment. I had nothing. No knife, no gun, no fire, no food, no experience. I was hundreds of miles away from civilization. It was the worst rainy season in a decade. And yet, despite that circumstances, I survived. But not only that I survived, I actually found something I didn't know I have. So I think that sometimes you need to get lost in order to find yourself. The amount of adversities that came my way is unimaginable. 3 weeks of hardship in the midst of the forest. You may know that the Amazon rainforest covers 4% of the planet, but 50% of all species live in the Amazon. I know most of them personally and intimately. Famine, injury, torrential rains, storms, floods. swamps, predator attacks, snakes and jaguars, and leeches and tick, and you cannot imagine how much adversity came my way. And yet, there were times that I was praying not to be saved, because I never been so centered and balanced and strong before in my life. I was not desperate. I was not afraid. How can it be? Well, I feel I was activated. I didn't have a choice. In circumstances like that, you must give it all you have. You fight for your life. So fear is an obstacle, and worry is taking energy. So all my faculties came together, honed to serve the purpose, preserve life. That kind of balance was intoxicating. I never thought of myself to be so powerful. That power is innate, as so much wisdom that I found inside myself. That wisdom is genetic. Nobody needs to learn how to survive. That's why we're here, because we know. I was saved. But the things I discovered in the forest didn't allow me to go back to life. I found providence. I discovered faith and needed no preaching for that. I felt I saw the face of God in the forest, in nature itself. Coming back to society, I just didn't fit anymore. That society prepared me for life, but everything was broken and nothing fell back into place. So I was lonely. I didn't fit in my own home, in my own society. And after several attempts to adjust, I just left. And I went back to the roads and became a world traveler, a nomad. I call myself the eternal traveler, at home wherever I am, but a foreigner even in the country where I was born. So as a nomad, I have a habit. I sleep in a tent. It doesn't matter where I live. I build myself a tent, and that's my bedroom. I don't sleep in the house. I sleep in a tent. If it's an apartment building, I build a tent on the roof of the apartment building, and I go and sleep there. If it's a house, I build a tent in the backyard, and I always sleep in a tent. I love the tent. The tent is a symbol of being transient. It's a symbol of being at home wherever you are. You always belong. It's a symbol of leaving very light footsteps behind you on the earth. But more than that, it makes sense. You think about it. If you own a house, you're shackled to that house. With mortgages and whatever it is, you need to protect that house. You're not free. But when you have a tent, you own the entire world. The world is yours. What initiated my journey into the Bolivian Amazon initially was a dream. I am a dreamer. But I don't say, I have a dream. I don't say that. I say, the dream has me. And I don't dream when I go to sleep. I don't go to sleep because the dream keeps me awake. I describe that condition calling it the dreamer fool. Because the dreamer intelligent just keeps dreaming. The dreamer fool has no choice. He has to follow his dream. Now, it's much better to be a dreamer intelligent, because to follow your dream is a dangerous thing. You have to leave everything behind and step into the unknown. You have to leave the comfort zone behind. I call that place that most of us live in, I call it the box. I want to describe life in a box. You wake up in some boxy bedroom, in a boxy house or boxy apartment. You get into your boxy car and drive into a boxy office where you sit in front of a boxy monitor. That describes about half of the life. Then you drive your boxy car or a boxy train car back home. If it's a train car, you have a little box in your hand to keep you busy between boxes. And then when you get home, you sit in your boxy living room in front of another box. And that's the other half of your life. Now the box tells you everything. The box tells you who you are and where you are and what you should think and who you should hate and who you should kill and who should lead you and what you should wear. It tells you how you should look, what you need, what you want. Everything comes from the box. And then there's a city of boxes. And the light of that city just swallows the light of the luminous universe. In that environment, one associates with the box. Position, possession, religious, ideologies, ideas, belief systems, education. The box tells us everything about our life. And then, finally, we die. And they put us in a box. How can you get out of the box? Nature. If we remember that we are nature ourselves, our life becomes much bigger. There's nothing boxed in the universe. One of the toughest moments when I was lost in that environment was on the 17th day of my solitude. An airplane passed in the sky. After 17 days of struggle, when that airplane passed up in the air, a surge of hope went through me. I started running and screaming, but I was under the canopy and the airplane was up in the sky. It disappeared, oblivious to my misery. At that moment, I collapsed. And I felt like something snapped inside my chest. I cried. And as I was crying with my face inside the mud, I gave up on life. I wanted to die. Death was much sweeter than life. At least in death I can rest. So I was praying from the bottom of my heart, please, please allow me to die. I gave up on life. What is so amazing is that life didn't give up on me. At that very moment, suddenly, I heard somebody else crying, like a young woman sobbing next to me. This was so impossible, but yet I heard it. So for a second, I raised my head. As I raised my head, I saw her right next to me. And the minute I saw her, I jumped on my feet and I started screaming at the top of my lungs, get up right now. The airplane may come back. We still have a chance. There's no time to cry. I jumped on her, I grabbed her, and I pulled her from the mud, and I started running towards the river with her, not letting go of her, begging her, screaming at her, whatever it takes. Keep walking until we find an open shore by the river. I'll build you a camp. I bring food for you. Don't give up. We have to make it to the river. There's still a chance. For 2 days, I took care of her. On the second night with her, I made a place big enough for 2 people to cover. I cut more palm fronds to cover us. I told her, get closer to me so we can absorb each other's warmth. And then I realized I'm hugging thin air. There was nobody there. I thought I lost my sanity. And yet, by appearing for these 2 days, she saved my life. Now, I don't know exactly how to explain it. Some people told me maybe it's like a guardian angel or something. I don't think so. I personally think this was just imagination. She was nothing but imagination. However, what I really, truly don't know is whose imagination was she? Because I didn't make her up. If I didn't make her up, whose imagination was she? When I was lying there in the mud, crying and praying to die, I didn't make up plans. I didn't say, let's pretend somebody's here and play a game. I didn't make it up. So who did? I don't know the answer to this question. But more importantly, she changed my life. Because not only that she saved my life, she changed my life. Because through her, I realized something unbelievable. How did she save my life? It wasn't somebody big and strong that helped me. No, it was somebody weak that needed me. That's how she saved my life. She needed me. I couldn't take care of myself anymore. But the moment somebody needed me, I could take care of her and myself easily. Our true power is revealed when we give it to others. It's 10-fold more powerful, even 100-fold more powerful, when we are not only self-serving, but when we're serving a greater good. That's when we reveal our true power. Along my travels, I went back to the same place. And I returned to the Amazon. It was 10 years after all this ordeal. And I went to the people in the village, the only tribal people that live on that river that were involved in saving my life. And they told me, Yossi, we are dying. The entire village is dying because the youth is living and never coming back. They said, help us. I said, what can I do? They say, we have a dream. We want to build a resort here in the middle of the forest. And tourists from all over the world are going to come to the resort. The youth are going to come back to be guides and cooks and motormen. And they'll take pride in their culture because they'll talk about it to the visitors. That's how we're going to save the village. I thought this is the worst idea possible. I mean, this is 2 days up the river on a small dugout canoe in an isolated forest. No flights, no transportation. But I didn't have a better idea. So I told him, this is a great idea, and let's make it happen. Since I am the dreamer fool, this became my dream. And when I have a dream, I don't have a life. I live for the dream. So this was not a project. This was my life. I moved to the village and lived with them. I stayed there for 3 years. Walking with the shaman, I learned about the forest, and I realized something quite amazing. Nature has the answer. The forest is an ecosystem. An ecosystem thrives as a whole because an ecosystem is interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent. So you cannot extract something without hurting everything else. So the only way is to keep the forest as a whole and use it as a whole. This knowledge of how to do that was there all the time, because that's how indigenous people lived through millennia. So based on that idea of an ecosystem, I started researching and reading. It's quite amazing. You see, in an ecosystem, no species disappears or dies. Everybody thrives. How can it be? It's so dense, you would think so much competition over resources, yet no species goes hungry. Everybody thrives in the ecosystem. How can it be? The idea of competition is based on the wrong assertion. Western societies are built on the idea that there is not enough, that resources are not enough. If we don't have enough, then it's better be mine, not yours. That's competition. And because there's not enough, and competition is the highest value we have, then we have attitudes such as kill the competition. And this attitude we are very good at, because we killed so many competitors. We destroyed and eradicated hundreds and even thousands of species based on the idea that there is not enough. It's a wrong idea. In nature, there is enough. Think about it. If there is enough, there's no need for competition, because there is enough. Different strategy emerges. Cooperation that is based on specialization. Niche, relative advantage, and cooperation. Everybody serves everybody. Based on that idea, I wrote a 3-pager, and I flew to Washington, D.C. to raise money for the resorts that we were about to build. In Washington, D.C., luckily, I was extremely well connected because I had access to yellow pages. So from a phone booth with quarters, I made calls. And after about 20 calls, one organization finally said, okay, come, we will meet you. I went to CISM, the Inter-American Development Bank. This was my first and only meeting in Washington. As I do the presentation, I don't know anything. I'm a novice. I'm not an ecologist. I don't know. I'm just a dreamer, a naive dreamer. They stop my presentation and say, Mr. Ghinsberg, we want to ask you 2 things. The first is, please promise us that you will not talk to anybody else in this town. They needed the idea. When idea is timely, it cannot be stopped. The second thing they told me, they said, Mr. Ghinsberg, we're sorry, but the amount of money that you're asking, we cannot give you. I was asking a grant of $250,000. So we cannot give you because we are the small loan department, and the minimum that we can give is $1.5 million. I said, I'll take it. I took it and went back, and we built that resort. This resort, until this very day, is an inspiration for the entire Amazon basin. I want to end by just telling you about my father. My father died last year. And, you know, he had a tough life, my father. Eastern European Jew, went through the Second World War, was taken by the Germans into work camps. After the war, migrated to Israel, started everything from new. Worked hard all his life and wasn't too happy. Was a bit bitter. Considered himself not really lucky. Had a hard life. But then, towards the end of his life, he contracted liver cancer. He was diagnosed with liver cancer. To the surprise of all of us, my father refused chemotherapy. He said no. He found an alternative medicine. It's some medicine made out of grain, all natural. It's called vodka. And my father treated himself with vodka. Transformation like that, I never seen in my life. Living in the shadow of death, my father became very alive. My father was outrageous. He couldn't walk anymore because in every step he had a dance move. He was dancing all day. He wasn't speaking because he was reciting poetry and telling jokes and singing from morning to evening. My father died a happy man. And I reckon that's the greatest virtue of all, to die happy. Because the last impression is the winning one. What did he care that he had a tough life? He was happy now. When you're happy now, it colors everything happy. So the last impression takes it all. If you're miserable when you die, you don't care that you were happy. You're miserable, it colors everything miserable. The last impression takes it all. The greatest thing, the most important thing is to die happy. But how can you die happy? Because no one knows when we die. So the only way to die happy is to live happy. That's the only way. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.